5 days, 4 nights, and 3 friends, Mike, Jake, and Chris, on a motorcycle tour through some of the best roads of the tri-state area between Georgia, North Carolina, and Tennessee. Let me start by saying I'm a planner. If there is no plan, I get very anxious very quickly. Yet I hear all the time the best trips are the ones you don't plan at all, just let the road take you and all that. So I made myself a plan to help address that character flaw. Hear me out. For the first half of the trip, I had routes and sleeping arrangements fully planned, taking us through iconic roads as far east as we'd go. But in the words of the great philosopher Tyler Durden, I need to just let go. So part of the plan is to not have a plan. We turn back west with only rough ideas of which roads we'd like to hit. But from the start of the trip, just knowing I didn't have GPS routes mapped all the way back home, I'd have a micro panic attack every time I thought about it. Setting out from Birmingham, Alabama, we had 3 primary goals. 1, maximize twisty roads and mountain views. 2, avoid highways when it makes sense. And 3, given our status as novice adventure riders, we should limit dirt riding to relatively tame fire roads, if at all. But first things first, coffee.
We're at our first stop of the day at Shaw's Barbecue. Not a whiff of a chain restaurant going on right here.
After fueling up our bodies and our bikes, we immediately broke principle number 2, crushing long, straight highway runs in an effort to get to the good stuff. Also, for the first night, we had reservations to camp at Indian Boundary on the Cherohala Skyway, just outside Tellico Plains, Tennessee. Because of the shorter fall days, I was pretty anxious about setting up camp in the dark. But I didn't want to let that ruin the fun and keep us from taking in mountain views and riding twisty roads.
The Chiloe, I hope I'm saying that right, overlook. And it is absolutely gorgeous and worth the detour. Just check out that view. Left-hand turn. GPS says I'm going the right way.
Okay, cool. All right.
In hindsight, I realized Chris was trying to tell me, please don't go down this dirt road. I'm not comfortable doing this with a fully loaded bike this early in the trip. But this was the plan, and I was going to follow the plan. Did I mention we're not super experienced on the dirt?
Well, let me check. Well, I'm just trying to see, because I want to be able to do this alone. Let's see what we're doing. Okay. Hang on. Something. Uh-oh. Might be flooded.
Good news. We had camping gear, so we could sleep here if we needed to.
How do you feel?
I'm fine. I'm a little pissed.
I researched the issue after we got home, and it seems like common knowledge to let the fuel pump cycle after the bike has been on its side for any length of time. Crisis averted, we carried on. In fact, it was a relatively uneventful and enjoyable ride after that brief scare. I'll go as far as to say I highly recommend the Chillowy WMA as a very manageable dirt road for anyone who wants to get some dust on the tires. After our brief stint on the trails, we enjoyed a short set of flowing twisties along County Road 315. With plenty of daylight left, we arrived in Tellico Plains and stopped to fuel up the bikes. We got a glimpse of some like-minded individuals who also enjoy the scenic mountain passes. Although the service at the restaurant we chose was pretty painful, getting to ride along the Tellico River on the way to camp was the perfect final segment of our first day. We did so much more than just get there. We were able to truly enjoy the journey. Even getting into camp was a surprisingly scenic and enjoyable road. Setting up our tents and hammocks went smoothly, with the exception of some temporary rule-following nonsense from the camp host. But she ended up being perfectly reasonable and really didn't cause us any problems. We ended the day with a much-needed campfire hang. The day was not without issues, but I couldn't have been happier with the result. Reveling in our short-term victory, I couldn't help but be that much more excited about what tomorrow held. After a peaceful coffee, we reviewed the map for what would be an extraordinary day of riding. Starting on the Cherohala Skyway, we'd hit Moonshiner 28, Tail of the Dragon, and Foothills Parkway, ending in Maggie Valley. Knowing we'd likely arrive late in the day, we booked our only verbo of the trip. This was the one night we would sleep in an actual bed.
so here we are on the Cherohala Skyway. I'm not taking my helmet off because I gotta go catch Jake and Chris, but here's the famous sign. Yeah.
The Cherohala Skyway has since become one of my all-time favorite rides, but this was my first time riding it, and before I knew it, we had ridden the entire Skyway. It was over. I didn't stop at any overlooks. I didn't get any drone footage. I didn't take any pictures. Not the end of the world, but this was a sharp reminder. I needed to slow down long enough to fully take in all the sights and not be in such a hurry to keep to the schedule.
Might as well walk in and see what Southern Gal.
After breakfast, we headed to Moonshiner 28, which was the biggest surprise of the trip for all of us. We have since added it to our must-ride list anytime we're in the area. We started the day with two truly enjoyable, nay even peaceful routes. But now, it was time for the most intense segment of the entire trip. The tail of the dragon has injured, or at least embarrassed, many a rider. Our goal was simply not to hang anything from the tree of shame. Success. We had completed 318 curves in 11 miles. Foothills Parkway is an immediate right turn after the Dragon and a much-needed mental break. With views that go on for days and sweeping curves that drain action camera batteries, well, you'll just have to ride it for yourself to get the full experience. And I really hope you do. Day 2 was nearing its end. Congested traffic slowed us down on our way to enter the Blue Ridge Parkway, where we were met with more slow cars but breathtaking scenery around every bend. Speaking of traffic, the unplannable things, like weather and malfunctions, had gone smoothly. But that was a reminder that the next day, I'd be entering the second half of this trip, the part that does not have a plan. It still gave me fits of anxiety, but after a day so utterly filled with glorious riding and scenery, as enjoyable as it was, I no longer had the mental capacity to worry. My only concern was getting out of these boots, taking a hot shower, and collapsing into a comfortable chair. It seems like I take forever to get on the bike. Everybody is always ready before me. Maybe it has something to do with all the cameras. Jake and Chris patiently waited for me to be ready to go so we could very carefully make our way down this steep, damp, leaf-covered, tight, winding driveway. Luckily with no mishaps. I was already fighting the urge to carefully plot every waypoint. We had decided to ride the Blue Ridge Parkway down past Courthouse Valley and exit the BRP, heading towards Highlands, North Carolina. After a brief stop to charge headsets, we'd be on our way. The weather was perfect. The views were endless. The riding was going to be downright inspirational.
So we are getting some drone footage here on the Blue Ridge Parkway. This place is absolutely glorious.
As we exit the Blue Ridge Parkway, this is officially the end of the plan. From here on out, we're picking waypoints as we go. No predefined routes, no campsites reserved. so I thought I'd give these nearby Forest Service roads a chance. While they didn't look too rough, the map wasn't very clear about whether or not we could make it all the way through, and I had no idea how difficult they would get. Up ahead started looking steep and rocky. We decided to turn back to the pavement and head down 215, later connecting to State Road 64, the Rossman Highway. As for planning, Jake, who is one of those guys who just has maps in his head, was leading. And I gotta say, it felt nice to just follow someone for a while.
We are here at the Dancing Bear at the High Dive. So we're gonna grab a couple of sandwiches, hang out for a little while.
Sky Valley and Black Rock Mountain State Park would be next on the list. But first, I had to find new gloves. I made the mistake of testing a cheap pair of Amazon gloves, which had developed a massive sore spot on my left hand. And my only backup pair were super warm Merlin winter mitts. Thank you, Ace Hardware. Hey Michael, your blinker's on. Honestly, the only thing really bugging me was that I still didn't know where we'd be sleeping that night. I had kind of hoped we'd wild camp at least once, maybe somewhere on the Georgia Traverse. But given our penchant for pavement, that felt highly unlikely at this point. We checked into Moccasin Creek State Park, who had one camping spot left, and these gracious hosts let all three of us set up there. It's like it was meant to be. After getting our sleeping arrangements in order, we'd head into Helen, Georgia to grab dinner and do a little people watching during Oktoberfest. If you've never been to Helen in October, do yourself a favor and swing by for at least a weekend.
We'll be honest, riding in the dark should be totally normal, but there's something about it that's just a little unsettling.
Yeah, no, we'll be pretty tight.
Swing all the way back around again.
Yeah.
It all worked out. Despite having almost no plan, we had a great day of riding. We found a perfect campsite. We even got to visit some friends. Sitting around the campfire that night, I felt especially grateful. It is an absolutely gloriously beautiful day. We're at Moccasin Creek State Park on Lake Burton. Rode the bikes in. They had one camping spot left, so that worked out. And we all three, they were totally cool. They, Chris was able to put up his hammock, and we brought both tents on the pad and all three bikes there. So all of that worked out great. Jake's still asleep, which is good. Hopefully that means he slept well. I've been up since about 5:30, but had a great night's sleep. And now, or very soon, we're going to pack up the bikes and head towards Dalton. We're going to hit Six Gap, ride Russell B, and go by Such's, and it's going to be a big day. Looking back, this was the day of the trip I wish I had planned a little better. Originally, I thought we'd be hitting a few sections of the Georgia Traverse on the way back home, riding a lot more off-road. Knowing what I know now, I would have routed us a little differently. Though we didn't ride the entirety of Six Gap, our morning waypoints would take us up Richard B. Russell, State Road 348, down 19/129 towards Stonepile Gap, before heading back north to Wheels of Suchess. As a side note, if you're ever moseying along a twisty road with motorcycles in your rearview mirror and you're passing several courtesy pull-offs, you are, by definition, being discourteous. That means rude. But I'm probably preaching to the choir if you're watching this.
A legend of an Indian woman.
We decided to head for the Cohutta Overlook and possibly find a campsite nearby, but we weren't sure where we'd be staying that night. Looking back, I wish we'd kept going up 60 towards Blue Ridge, Georgia, and then back down 76 to Ellijay, leading towards County Road 52 towards Cohutta. It wasn't a bad route that we took, just a little more highway than I'd prefer. We were halfway done with our last full day. Realizing we were running low on time made me appreciate the rare opportunity to be on bikes with my buddies without any real responsibility. Yet it's funny how you can simultaneously miss home and wish you had more time for a vacation.
This is the Cohutta Overlook near Fort Mountain State Park. It is absolutely gorgeous. Oh my gosh.
Turns out, Fort Mountain State Park is basically right next to the Cohutta Overlook and had a perfect campsite down by the water. After setting up our tents, we headed back down the mountain into Chatsworth for dinner. Riding back up the mountain in the dark would be our last nighttime ride.
Specifically said, all right, I had at the beginning the non-off-road tires. I'm like, what am I doing? I bought, I added all the protection. But at the same time, what scared getting, not thrown, but me ended up in a position where it's not a cosmetic problem. No, this time next year you won't be working with that. Yeah, that's not. That's the goal.
Let me just say this. Campfire therapy is real. I believe it is critical to mental health. If you are blessed with good friends, make time to burn a fire together. And don't be a bum like me and let your buddy split all the firewood for the night.
Today is day 5. We are heading out of camp on our way home. But I had to stop. I had to stop here, literally on top of the mountain. So, thank you for this trip. Thank you for the time. Thank you for bikes that have worked well.
In that moment, I was truly overwhelmed with gratitude. Everything had gone so unbelievably perfect. From the weather, the roads, the traffic, the food, the campsites. We were blessed and watched over in every way you could imagine. Chris and Jake were waiting on me at breakfast down the mountain, but I couldn't bring myself to land the drone until the battery was fully exhausted. Coming down the mountain by myself brought me to a realization about my own route planning anxiety. It became clear that the waypoints didn't matter nearly as much as I thought. Because, yeah, as cliche as it sounds, the people I was riding next to mattered so much more than which roads we decided to take. If you're on the fence about scheduling a trip because you're worried that something might go wrong or it might be uncomfortable, let me reference Mark Twain. 20 years from now, you'll be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than by the ones you did. So throw off the bow lines, sail away from the safe harbor, catch the trade winds in your sails, explore, dream, discover. And if I could add anything to Mr. Twain, make sure you invite a few good friends. That will matter far more than whatever place you decide to go, or whatever route you choose to take there.